You're in the right place at the right time, stretching from the distant spaceports of Batu, Tatooine, and Raxus Secundus, and all the way to the bright center of the galaxy at Imperial Center, slamming into your holoprojector like a supercharged nanoparticle of coaxium. This is the Star Wars Unfiltered podcast, and we are here to bring you your needed dose of Star Wars commentary. It is March 21st, 2025, and we have a long overdue update on the second half of The Acolyte, approximately 9 months after it's out, because everyone's been on the edge of their seat waiting for this. But yeah, we'll also give some brief thoughts on other recent happenings in Star Wars, and Skeleton Crew has come out about 3 months ago, 4 months ago, mid-December, I think, is when
it's already been that
started.
long.
Yeah, it's already been that long. What did you think of Skeleton Crew? We'll just give our kind of brief thoughts on it.
It was great. It doesn't even feel that long for us because we both waited to binge the whole thing. We waited till the series was over to binge it.
That was a first for, I think, both of us, because normally we watch each episode of something.
And
I think I had always done that.
Yeah, and it wasn't the type of show that needed to be like not every episode would like have something that would have you on the edge of your seat. I mean, I didn't feel that way. It wasn't like serious because it's, sort of kids, Goonies type stuff.
Goonies inspired.
Heavily inspired.
Heavily, yeah.
But it was a nice like palate cleanser after The Acolyte, for better or for worse. Like as good or bad as The Acolyte was. Like, it was nice to just have something to not worry about. It didn't have the weight of, like, universe.
No galactic stakes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and no lore stakes either. No canon or lore stakes.
No, nothing. Just a bunch of kids going on an adventure and looking for pirate treasure. And there was some nice little callbacks and references, but I liked that it was different with this whole like hidden planet that didn't know about the Galactic Civil War or even the Empire. That was an interesting angle.
It felt very old EU.
Yeah.
Like a one-off old EU type book.
Yeah, it was very fun. I think that was the biggest thing of it, is that it was fun. And again, I didn't know what to expect seeing, a couple of the trailers before going in, but I was like, well, I'll just casually watch it. And I was pleasantly surprised. It was great. It
actually reminds me the difference between like Kenobi and the Acolyte, something like that, or Andor even. I don't want to sully Andor by lumping it in with those two, but versus Skeleton Crew it reminds me of that joke line from Family Guy where he's talking about, I think, The Godfather or whatever, and he's like, it insists upon itself, which is kind of nonsense, but at the same time I think it applies to like Skeleton Crew, where it's nice because it doesn't insist upon itself. Not that even makes sense, but like it doesn't take itself seriously. I guess that goes along with the whole galactic stakes thing. So
yeah, I think that happens with a lot of Jedi stories too, because the Force is involved, or the Sith or whatever, and there's just sometimes you want something that's different and gets away from that. Well, obviously there's a little bit of Jedi.
The other funny thing, just to close it out, is I found it funny that it didn't have like high stakes or whatever for the whole galaxy, but it did have like big like sort of universe building things in it in a very mundane way that's kind of similar to how the Phantom Menace was. Everybody always shits on the politics and like there was all these jokes about like, oh, it's like fiduciary policy and like trade wars and all this stuff, and like Skeleton Crew is just it's the mint. It's just the mint for the Old Republic, and that's it. It's like a big deal, but then it's just more fiduciary government political crap. So,
right, which is the stuff that I like more and more as I delve into more Star Wars stories.
As you get older.
As I get older, politics are interesting. But I think I even felt that way back when I read Cloak of Deception 20 years ago. So it just depends on how it's written and how it's presented.
Right.
It, obviously, seeing on an opening crawl leading into a blockade in the Phantom Menace is not as exciting as some of the backdoor dealings that happen in some of the other books and stuff. But
Right.
yeah, you're right. It was a nice palate cleanser. Um, so anyway, let's see. Also, in recent weeks and months, I've been plowing through the prequel era. In fact, as of today, I should be finishing my revisitation of Darth Maul Shadowhunter by Michael Reeves.
And what better
after
time than
uh,
25 years later, or whatever it is.
well, in that case, this is a reread because I did read it back then.
Right.
But it's nice to just revisit and also read the stories I had never read and play some games I had never played. Other than sampling Starfighter at your house years ago, I finally played through that, and that's a really fun arcade style simulator game. And then even Galactic Battlegrounds, the RTS strategy game, I had never played, and it was really fun to actually go through the uh, kind of the walkthrough trial campaign where Qui-Gon guides you to basically help the Wookiees fight off the Trade Federation on one of their colony worlds. And yeah, it was a good game. I was having flashbacks to playing Dune 2 Battle for Arrakis from the 90s, and very similar to that, building resources, mining resources. Basically, it's not like action oriented. It is the kind of game that you enjoy, like the strategic element of it, making sure everything is running smoothly and you don't get attacked at the wrong time. But
Yeah,
it was just nice to check that box on that game.
I never played it, and it's weird because at the time I was pretty big into RTS games, and I played Force Commander, and I remember, Force Commander was a little early with the 3D, switching to 3D on an RTS.
They were,
and then when they announced the Galactic Battlegrounds, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. Like,
and it's funny that they went to like kind of bit mapping with Galactic Battlegrounds. It's not back to true 3D.
Yeah, it's back to sprites, which at the time was better for RTS and stuff. But
I think it works at the time period.
Yeah, but then I never got around to playing it for some reason. And then when Empire at War came out, I really liked that game.
The really good one.
But I completely ignored the ground battles because all I was interested in was the space battles. So
that's true, and that game really did the space battles well. And I only dabbled in that one. I played through the tutorial actually once or twice, but I would get obliterated when I got to the space battle section. So I don't know. I had trouble, and then I got demoralized, and I walked away. But I intend to get back into that one eventually.
I like the space battles in that. I think I still prefer Rebellion. Because it has
going old school.
It has the Z-axis. It's completely 3D, but it's not limited to 2-dimension on the map. But
I think
that runs
Empire
like
at War, you can flip it around. Maybe you have to switch to the cinematic view, and it does it automatically.
Yeah, but it's not like Rebellion you could do all sorts of weird flanking maneuvers and stuff, like above and you can completely surround above and below and all that stuff. And you couldn't really do that in Empire at War. But obviously, it's fine. At Empire War, there's a lot of things I liked about it. And Rebellion, it's really rough around the edges, even for the time. And
it is. If you look at retrospective reviews, people are like, it's not great compared to the other RTSs, but if you grew up with it, it's one of those things that if that was your first, it could have a lot of nostalgia.
And it does. That is, I love Rebellion. But
that's one I need to delve more into.
But
I might.
But it's like loving that weird conjoined twin from Basket Case. So it's exactly. Difference between that and Empire at War.
It's like loving the Trioculus books. They are what they are, and they don't. They have no shame. They are what they are. So anyway, let's get into the second half of the Acolyte.
Oh
here.
God, let's.
Now, can you recall any of our theories, whether they came true or not? I know we had some theories halfway through before we saw what truly happened to the witches.
I think I was hot on Keemer being Ren or a knight of Ren, and that was obviously not the case.
A red herring, the way he's kind of presented.
Right.
Because,
so that's
and
a
you know,
bump.
and you know what's funny though is that he's still technically not confirmed as a Sith, despite the fact that he's almost quoting the Sith doctrine throughout these episodes, and then he says some might call me a Sith when his mask is knocked off. You know, he's the way he words it, and I think they do that as a way to just kind of get the fans guessing, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's like Occam's razor. What do you think is the most likely thing here?
Yeah, I know that is kind of the thing, and there's a lot of little things like that bug me. Like if he is a Sith, he so wouldn't say that name. You know what I mean? With how the Sith operated post Bane and the rule of two and everything. I feel like that would be, even if he was confident in being able to, kill everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know if they do that. But then again,
I'm not sure.
He's not master status, right? So, I mean,
I'll tell you what. He wiped out that entire Jedi team other than Soul. And I mean, that's impressive. And I did actually rewatch the entire series again a few days ago.
Oh, God.
Just because we were supposed to obviously record in December, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna rewatch it then. But I was like, I'll watch it again. Fuck it. And because I mean, it actually fit in because of all the Old Republic and prequel era stuff I'd been absorbing. I mean, I've been rereading Darth Plagueis, so I was like, this is actually, I'll be able to kind of get a vibe to see how well it kind of fits in. And I'm glad I did. And I think in that regard, I think the Stranger, it fits in perfectly okay with how he's presented. And the Cortosis mask and gauntlets, I think, is really cool.
Yes.
And my favorite thing, and I can say this with complete confidence, that I love the Acolyte. I don't love it as much as Andor and certain other things, but I do really, really like it. And I think the best thing is the choreography and the martial arts and the fighting and the dueling. I think it's the best we've had since the prequels movies as far as those things.
Yeah, I could. Well, yeah, I'd say it's better than. It's definitely better than the sequels. As far as
those are decent. Those are decent, but with the sequels with Rey and Finn dueling Kylo Ren, they're like untested or untrained, or they're kind of off. They're not like, it's not like seeing fully trained Jedi fighting a fully trained Sith,
right
person. So that's what gives that a certain edge.
Ben would, Kylo Ren would have plenty of training to be able
that's
to
true.
Wipe them with
That's
the floor.
True.
I would say that I don't love it. It's on the rewatch. It's like, it's okay. I'd lump it in with, it's like Kenobi, Book of Boba Fett tier.
Whoa, Kenobi. Damn.
Well, what do you mean? You expect
that one real? That's like my bottom. I mean, and I'm not gonna put the Acolyte at the bottom. No, for me, it's in the middle. It's in the middle. It's under Mando, under Skeleton
Well,
Crew,
I'm trying
under
to.
Andor.
I don't know. I don't know that I have like a really. Kenobi is pretty bad.
Why don't you revisit Kenobi, Jason, and then come back to me?
Can I just watch the Vader scenes, please?
Just the Vader scenes. Well, there is some fan edits. There is a nice 2 or 3 hour edit.
I believe I have one chambered up and ready to go the next time I get the hankering to watch it. But
yeah.
It's very flawed. It insists upon itself. I think it takes itself very seriously, and some of the stuff works, but then other stuff is just like, what are you doing? Like, the whole Kia di Mundi thing.
Well, yeah, that's just like a little tiny thing. It doesn't
but it's
matter.
like, come on, you got to get that shit right.
I didn't care about that.
There's a lot of style in it and not a lot of substance. And the biggest thing I would point to as that is a good example of that is the whole thing with the saber bleeding or the crystal bleeding part.
Mm-hmm.
It's just fucking ridiculous. I just got done watching that episode. She she casually tosses the lightsaber, right? And then it
Yeah.
breaks. And it breaks so much that the crystal's sticking out the side of Soul's lightsaber. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, he made his like shit or something. Then it still works. It still works enough to like function properly. And,
Let me tell you about that scene. That is obviously doing things that previously were only shown in the comics or even mentioned in. I'm not sure if they were mentioned in recent canon novels, but in the comics for sure. I think it started in the Darth Vader comics, the whole crystal bleeding thing,
mm-hmm,
and they could spend more time on it, obviously in a comic because it's like a whole process. But I think for the sake of a casual audience that's just watching Star Wars streaming, I think they needed to show it in a really quick way that would make, kind of make like certain younger viewers go, "Whoa, that's so cool," but like they don't read the books, they don't read the comics, they don't know the process of it's not properly shown the proper way. So it was kind of like they had to convey, it's like in Solo when like Darth Maul's in the hologram and he has to call his lightsaber to him and ignite it to let the casuals know. It's like that with this. That's like that version of it.
well,
So you have to forgive. You have to forgive to a certain extent and go, they're just trying to get this for a
you know
casual
what though?
audience.
But that's the thing. I would forgive them if I didn't think that crystal bleeding wasn't horse shit to begin with. It's the same
I
thing.
think it is too.
It's the same thing with the light whip that, the bald headed chick,
Vernestra Rowe.
right, that she has. It's like, you don't look to, and I know that this it comes from the High Republic.
Originally, Marvel in the 80s had light whips with Lumia, but
Right.
yeah,
Right. In
she
canon, yeah.
Vernestra Rowe
But that,
comes
okay,
from
so that
the High Republic.
so that even furthers my point that
I
I
don't
make
like
is that,
light whips.
right,
I don't like them.
it
I think it's
furthers
silly.
it furthers my main point, which is don't look to comic books to do things in more serious, media for something,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like,
Keep that in a comic. Don't put it in a TV
if it was in
series.
Marvel, probably.
And 80s Marvel
Right,
at that.
yeah,
When
exactly.
it was real
Don't,
wacky.
yeah. It's like, come on, that's not even a weapon you could use. Like,
It's a bit ridiculous.
and then the
But,
bleeding thing, it would be more interesting if like the bleeding was, more involved than just like, oh, it touches you and then it
yeah,
turns,
and then there it is.
it turns red, and then she ignites the saber and then it's blue, but then the saber turns red.
Yeah,
Like, what
I
the
know.
fuck? It would just be red.
It's
But
silly.
so yeah, it's silly. Don't look to comic books or young adult stuff.
Let me tell you this. I have a list of
stuff.
I have a write up of some of the cool, kind of more symbolic or metaphorical things that I saw throughout the Acolyte, and some of this stuff is even in the early episodes too. So
Mhm.
let me read off some of these things. So after Indara is killed on Ueda, Carrie-Anne Moss's character, Osha wakes from sleep, seemingly in distress, as if she herself had just caused the death of the Jedi Master. Despite the sound alibi that Osha was on the Trade Federation ship during the attack, the audience can't deny that Osha looks exactly like the killer. After she is taken into custody by her old Jedi classmate Yord, the scene transitions to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, where Master Soul is teaching students and saying, "Close your eyes can deceive you. We must not trust them." Not only does this work in making us question what we just saw with Osha and whether or not she's the killer, but it can work as a subtext for subsequent rewatches when you realize that Osha is indeed the one with darkness inside of her as a whole, and not May, who we initially think is the quote unquote evil character. So I think that was a key thing on the show. The whole thing is that your eyes can deceive you, despite what things look like. They're not always, obvious. And that's a Star Wars theme that goes back, obviously, at least to The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Is with Yoda, like we don't think this little gnome is this great warrior or anything like that. And I like that. That was, Soul saying those lines in the temple. I realized on a rewatch, wait, yeah, this is like describing the whole series, but you don't know that on a first viewing. So that's why sometimes first viewings there's an innocence to them because you're not going to see it the same, after that. And I think that's why the Acolyte benefits from a quick watch, like all at once, rather than week by week. Because this show is so confusing. I mean, even when I'm rewatching it close together, the way that May switches into Osha's clothes, and they're the same actress playing both characters in the present day.
Yeah.
And so my brain, even I've seen the Acolyte like 3 or 4 times now, and my brain is still like halfway through. I'm like, wait, which one is this? Is it May or Osha? I'm like, oh yeah, it's Osha, but she looks like May, and
Yeah.
vice versa. And obviously they wanted you to like kind of be confused on a certain level, and then there's certain things that aren't explained, like when it's kind of left up to the audience to interpret it, like when May is with Master Soul on the ship, and he's all like heartbroken after everything that happened down on the planet with all the Jedi dying, and then like May comes up behind him, like probably gonna kill him or something, and then he's like, "Can you go check on like the engine?" Because like that red light comes on the
Mm-hmm.
console or whatever. And then she's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, of course." So she goes and checks it, and then Stoll goes and like stands at the console, and he just kind of like breathes hard, like like he's like thinking,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't convey what's going on. But when I watch it on a rewatch, I can almost see like he's realizing in that moment, like, wait a second, this is May.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's when he's like, oh, and I like that they did it. They left it up to you to figure that out. It wasn't like telegraphed in a stupid way or something. So I don't know. I like those little things.
Wait. Okay. You watched it 3 times. Can you tell me why the rat sabotaged the?
I don't know.
ship?
That was another
Exactly.
thing I was gonna like. What? Okay, he sees that May is trying to kill Soul, and he like the tenant is also, he doesn't like her. So what? Why is he sabotaging the ship? Because it's not like Soul. Okay, when he's chasing her through the asteroid rings, I don't think he was gonna shoot her. I think he was gonna tractor beam her in or something.
Right. Yeah.
So then the tenant is like, "Well, I need to fuck this up. He's gonna kill her." It's like, no, he's gonna bring her in. He's not gonna kill her.
Yeah. I don't.
So I don't know what was going on.
Okay,
Here. That was confusing.
I that was an honest question too, because it was something I was going to bring up, and then but since you watched it the whole thing
I'm
one
just
more
as
time
confused.
than me, I was like, what the hell's going on?
Every single viewing I've had, I don't understand, other than the fact that maybe he just hates everybody. I guess that's what it is.
He's just an asshole.
He's just an asshole. And
Goddamn
quite
rat.
honestly, he's ruined my views of Tenons ever since. I'd rather have spray
And
from the Han Solo
you had such a
adventures.
high
Yeah, I was like,
viewpoint of
oh,
him.
Tenons. No, he's an asshole.
Uh-huh.
He's a dark side Tenon. So yeah, that's kind of a bummer.
Well,
Now,
wait.
yeah.
Another prediction was, like, at this point, can't even believe it. But you said we might see Soul. Well, I know actually that might have been a good prediction. We might you mentioned that we might see Soul like Qui-Gon by the end of the show, and in certain ways, I could see that.
I still think that even on a rewatch, because he was kind of bending the rules to go his way, and he was not afraid to show an attachment to Osha.
But he wasn't.
Obviously,
The main
he made a
difference,
mistake.
yeah, the main difference is that he had no confidence in his convictions, like Qui-Gon. Like
Yeah.
Qui-Gon did it from his connection to the living force and
Mhm.
his adherence to the living force, and
Yeah.
what he believed was right. Whereas Soul is like kind of the same thing, but it's all like very timid, and
It's in his head.
it is, and he kind of just fucks it up. Like Qui-Gon
He made a mistake.
only fucked up by dying.
Yeah.
and apparently the only person to die from a lightsaber to the gut. But
the only.
yeah, he's like a proto.
He's a proto Qui-Gon
Fucked
in
up
a certain way. He's a
Qui-Gon.
field. I mean, and throughout the new canon, there's been at least one other Jedi, Rael Avaros, who was Dooku's other apprentice before Qui-Gon. He's extremely a maverick, to the point where in the Master and Apprentice book, he's off and sleeping with women, smoking cigars, drinking, this guy is like living the dream as a Jedi, and no one's calling him out on it.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, he make this Rail Avaros makes Qui-Gon look like a goody two shoes,
Well, apparently
basically.
they can, cover up murders, like multiple, like a serial Jedi murderer.
Yeah, that too. And in fact, speaking of Ernestra Rowe, I really, really enjoyed the scenes with her dealing with that senator.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like I said, I enjoy politics more in Star Wars as I get older, but I feel like that could almost be the basis of a whole novel or
Well,
even another series
that
with
that would be one of my main complaints with the show is that they didn't lean into the things that would actually be super interesting. They
I
sort
think
of
they
just
needed more of that.
well, I think they were expecting more seasons, and
Yeah,
that was a
I
huge
know.
mistake.
It
In
is actually with how they set it up. Like if you're gonna actually think you have other seasons, don't don't leave it like almost nearly on a cliffhanger. You don't want that. I've been disappointed by enough shows that didn't continue
right,
when they thought they would.
the so like that whole thing with the Jedi potentially getting investigated or get audited by the Senate,
Yeah,
and then also, I mean, obviously they were probably gonna delve into it with Plagueis and Keemer and the whole virgins and how the
I
Osha
guess
and
we'll
May
just
were.
see. Yeah, I guess we'll see what happens in publishing or other TV series. They could even just have a whole different TV series that just focuses on that other stuff and just not call it the Acolyte. If they wanted to. And who knows? We are overdue for announcements on new Star Wars series because other than Ahsoka season 2, I think that's the last little thing that's left over because Mando, we don't even know if there's going to be more seasons. Obviously, they're transitioning with a movie. I think Favreau has kind of said there will probably be more seasons after the movie, but
Yeah,
like we are overdue on we need new TV announcements. Now, obviously, there's Lando, but like that's just up in the air for Donald Glover.
forever.
And then, but it would be cool to have a Darth Plagueis or hell, give me. I know it'll never happen, but Manny Jacinto was so good as the stranger in this. To me, he almost took over and ran the show because even on all my rewatches, how he plays as a fool in the first few episodes and then flips that and becomes the super dark side badass with a lot of really cool lines. I thought his acting was really good and how he presented himself. I mean, it is funny too because I don't know if this is just getting older, but I find myself agreeing with Sith dialogue way more than Jedi dialogue as I get older.
Yeah,
Like when he's like, I don't know, Osha said something about selfishness or whatever, and then he was like semantics. That's all he said, and it
yeah.
just summed it up. It was like,
Well, that's the
yeah,
thing
I
that the
get that.
show, that's the whole thing where it doesn't lean into what is actually interesting. Like it would be interesting to. I'm more interested in his character and how presumably he left the Jedi Order, how he
Right.
hooked up with presumably Plagueis, and his relationship with Plagueis. Like
I know.
I but they take too long to get to it, and then it's just like oh, stinger for season 2, like
I think,
Plagueis is hiding out in the cave.
and
I still
yeah,
don't think that that's a great depiction of Plagueis either, because at least going by old EU canon and stuff with the whole Plagueis book, it doesn't seem like that guy would be head of the what is it, the banking clan.
it's really hard to even see. Like I've seen fans that upped the contrast and the gamma to like get a good look.
Mm-hmm.
It's close enough, but it's rough and it's hard to tell from the shadowy shot that we have. We need to see more, and I'm just glad they kept him immune. I think that was the right thing to do.
Yeah,
Just keep it consistent
just
with
make him
the
less creepy.
legends, less creepy.
Because
Well,
like you're putting in the teaser is for people that know that Plagueis is a moon,
yeah.
and so even if you don't even show him and you just have a silhouette of like his head from behind,
Mhm.
from
Mhm.
looking out the cave, people would be able to tell. But he
Oh, it's
doesn't.
Sand Hill from the Banking Clan from Attack of the Clones. I know that guy. That's what all the casuals are thinking.
And that's fine. That's like, oh my god, that's like when uh this guy was like telling me how big of a Marvel fan he was, and then he was like, and then this was right after the Avengers came out, and he's like, yeah, and it was Red
Mhm.
Skull at the end of the credits in Avengers. I'm like, oh my god, dude, you are
Yeah, yeah.
you
I've
are
been
idiot.
presented with things like that with Star Wars myself.
But that's fine because at this point, like, but they're not putting that reference in for casuals. It's in for the hardcore
It's in for
fans.
us.
It's yeah,
But
exactly. And if you that's all you need to do, which is fine. It's fine. That's not a big deal. The point is that there's a lot of things in that show that could have been more interesting explored. Even I don't even think they explored the whole Virgins thing with Osha and May enough. Like,
I think that was meant to be expanded further in another
well,
season,
yeah,
obviously.
obviously all the stuff was, but
And
it's
even
like,
and when Soul is talking about when he's presenting that to May and Osha in the final episode, and Kymir is standing right there listening. It's funny because Soul says that. I think it's to is it to May who's learning for the no, it's Osha. They're both right there,
mm-hmm,
and it cuts to Kymir as Soul says this, and he has this kind of look. People pointed this out, and then I really noticed it. He has this kind of look like he knows more, and
mm-hmm,
that's what made me think maybe Plagueis was involved with the witches in some way, or there's something going on there that something that Kymir knows
right,
in regards to that. But
right.
again, it could have just been a little look for just to make it look like he knows.
They
I don't know.
the first season, the only season, um,
The series,
the series
the
should have tied up,
limited series.
should have delved into more interesting things and not just focused on that stupid event. They didn't even do a good job with that. There's like so much, like the witches. How did they create, the girls? Like,
Again, this reminds me. This is like watching season 1 of Lost, and this is when everyone jumped off after season 1. It's like this show's not giving me enough answers. It's just all a mystery, and it's like, yes, I know. You watch season 2, and then it's the same thing. I'm not getting enough answers. Okay, watch season 3, but in this case, we don't have further seasons, so it's really a mystery, and that is a problem,
and
and that is why they need to wrap up these threads in some other form somewhere else.
yeah, I
That's
guess
it.
I don't
At the
know.
end of the day. At the end of the day. Now, there's one other thing here I wanted to mention. I was when we were talking about Vernestra Rowe and the senator. Um, well, it's not technically with the senator, but at the very end of the last episode, when Vernestra is talking to May, so this is interesting. So they bring May into that council chamber, and then Vernestra says, "Leave us." And I was thinking, oh, that's just like the Emperor saying that to his royal
I
guards.
noticed that. Yeah.
And then she even says, remove the restraints. And then I was like, wow, that's just like the Emperor using the Force to like remove Luke's, cuffs. And I think they did that on purpose because not that Vernestra is evil or anything like that. I
Well,
think
she's Palpatine.
she's morally
She's
ambiguous,
Palpatine.
but
She's Palpatine is, him and Phantom Menace is just a clone of Vanessa Rowe.
well, where I'm going with this is that I think it was done on purpose to symbolize the hubris of the Jedi during this time, that they're
Yeah.
going down a bad path, and that we're, as an audience, we're supposed to kind of get these shades of past Star Wars stories that are almost an inverse mirror of things that happen later. And then she even says, she mirrors Obi-Wan's line about Anakin, where she's talking about presumably about Kymir, and then she says he was a pupil of mine until he turned to evil. Obviously it's like, whoa, okay, call back straight to A New Hope there.
It's in it. It's all sorts of stuff. It's like, how often does that happen? Like, what do they do when that
So
happens?
I'd like to actually, we always notice these things as fans, but we've almost never hear people talk about why they did it. And I'd like to know. Obviously, it would take away some of the mystery and the behind it, but like, I don't know. I'm always interested in why that's in a script. Were they purposely really, really trying to mirror something, or is it just circumstance?
It
I
could
don't
be a
know.
mirror of, um, Palpatine and Anakin. If it is Plagueis in the cave and he is still like the head of the banking clan or whatever the heck Plagueis was the head of. It was the banking clan, right? You just read that book.
Damask Holdings, but yeah, it was.
Oh, right.
It was connected to the banking.
It was
clan
connected, but Damask Holdings was like huge, right?
It was
had
huge.
a lot
it
of
was
sway
like
with the banking.
Yeah,
clan.
yeah, exactly.
Right,
and
okay.
they were on Munilinst.
Right. It's been like 10 years since I read the book, and you just read it, right? Reread it.
Wait a second. You read it back when it came out?
Well, has it not been 10 years? I don't remember
I thought you read it when I read it in 2019.
Oh, was it that recent?
Yeah, it was 6 years.
2019
Is 6 years 10 now?
It feels like it
well.
after COVID. Feels like it.
Whatever.
No, 6 years.
6 years.
Oh, sorry, I was 4 years off.
Well, look, when I reread it like last month, or when I'm still nearing the end here, but like when I started my reread, so much of that book seemed genuinely new to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, and sometimes that happens with Star Wars books as a whole. Some of them, like Cloak of Deception, I vaguely knew a couple things, but that was another one. I know I read your copy of that like on the Celebration 2 trip.
Mm-hmm.
That book seemed so completely new to me. It was like, wow. It's just funny how certain ones stick in your head and certain ones don't. Maybe it's Luceno. Luceno just doesn't stick in the head. But
anyway, 10 years, whatever. It's been a while since I read it, and
yeah,
COVID's like double. Those 2 or 3 years doubles everything. So
yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So if that's he's the head of Damask Holdings, it would be more interesting if there was if they did do another season, if it did a lot of flashbacks to him. Like how he would hook up, right, with Keemer.
Yeah.
If if he had some sort of interaction like Anakin and Palpatine were,
and Plagueis is a long-lived species, at least in Legends. Now the thing is, I'm not sure if Tenebris was canon, Plagueis' master, I'm not sure if Bith are long-lived also, but it'd be interesting to see if they recanonized Tenebris to see if the timeline would be similar or different. If you merge canon and Legends like I do on my personal timeline, this is still way before the earliest scenes in the Darth Plagueis novel, which I think they start in like 80 BBY, and obviously the Acolyte is 132 BBY.
Mm-hmm.
But it'd be interesting to see if Tenebris is even around during this time.
I think it'd be funny if, I think I mentioned this before just in our conversations, it'd be funny if Keemer was Tenebris and Plagueis was actually the apprentice.
Some people thought that.
And he's replacing Plagueis. That's why Plagueis is like in the cave, like, hey, what are you doing, Master? You replacing me with her?
Right. He takes his mask off and he's a Bith. And I was like, whoa.
Well, no, I just recanonize him as wherever Keemer comes from.
Just use the name. Yeah, just use the name again. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you never know how this is going to go out. But I mean, yeah, so going back to one of my overall thoughts of the show, I think it was really good. If you like
shit.
If you like no. Oh, you know what? Shoot, we haven't even gone over the comments about what people said yet.
Oh, well,
and,
let's finish your thought. We'll get through the rest of the predictions real quick that were hits or bonks or whatever.
Yeah.
And then get to the whatever the comments.
Right. So I just think that the score was really good on the show. The editing was perfectly fine. The wipes and dissolves were classic Star Wars. We said that the previous podcast. The fighting choreography was amazing. I think where the show was just okay was the sets and the special effects. There was nothing bad, but there was nothing great either. It just kind of got the job done.
Yeah.
And which is fine because I think the highlight was more on character interaction and things like that. But that's my overall thoughts on the show. And if I had to, like I said, I'd put this somewhere in the upper middle of what's been released. Maybe middle, but like I'd give the Acolyte a good B+, I'd say.
Okay, I'd give it I wouldn't give it a rating or anything. I don't know where it lands, but it's just it's fine. Technically it's made well enough for like a TV show type thing. It's certainly it's no
it's no Star Wars film.
but uh, it 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 deals with really big ideas, and it executes. It lands none of them. Like,
Oh,
I don't think, because like I said, the thing is you have all these interesting ideas, and yeah, maybe they were going to go for more seasons or whatever, but you can't operate under that assumption unless you have them locked in. So, and
yeah.
then it's just not satisfying, and the show wasn't satisfying. You end it with a contrived, like, force mind wipe that happens in like literally less than 5 seconds. He waves his
Well, I'll
hand
tell
and
you what.
then he
Also,
removes like
the
large
Tenon and the
swaths.
Jedi took like 10 minutes to run from like 100 feet away from behind those trees while
Right.
they were. That's one thing that bothered me.
So I don't know. And maybe some of the technical stuff isn't good, the editing and all that stuff. If they can't get those type of things right, but
Yeah.
um, I think it falls short in a similar way to that Kenobi does. That's why I kind of lump it in with Kenobi. Is
Yeah.
that you had, and Kenobi's issue was that you got Ewan back, you got Hayden back, you got all these, and you got these characters back and stuff, and then that's what you do with it, like bad editing,
Well,
bad
well,
effects.
I see what you're saying. Although I've enjoyed my Acolyte rewatches a lot, whereas my Kenobi rewatches almost get worse as I see it more.
Yeah,
So it just depends, I guess, on what you're leaning into or what you appreciate about each one.
I might like it more if I knew that there was more coming, but
Yeah.
knowing now that
It's
there's not
heart
any more
it's
coming, it's like
heartbreaking actually when I think of that
it
because
it just
I
makes it
think
worse.
I think the show had so much potential for a long engaged story that just an Acolyte fan base that focuses on that and that's their thing. I think that would reward those people just like the Old Republic has its hardcore little biome of fans that it feeds with the MMO. I think it could be like that, and unfortunately, we'll never know, or at least not at this point.
Yeah.
So,
Um. So I don't know.
yeah.
Maybe a D. Maybe I give it a D.
Oh,
In light of
jeez.
there's not going to be anything else coming, because
Yeah.
look, it's kind of similar to A New Hope and then Empire and Return of the Jedi. So far in that, if you compare like the not the writing or anything or the story, but like just the look, the feel, and the effects of, like, there's this big jump, right? Because they have more money and they have more resources and all that stuff. Um, if living in a vacuum, I don't know how Star Wars would fare. Obviously, everybody liked it at the time, and it was a huge movie by itself.
Hmm.
But I don't even know if this is a really good comparison because the Acolyte by itself, even now, is not looked at uh, very fondly or anything.
Well, I think beyond the obvious YouTube criticisms, I don't even know if I want to call them that. It's just YouTube reactors reacting the way they do. Beyond that, I think what each Disney Plus series has as a problem is that as soon as a few months pass, it's on to the next thing. People are just looking to the next thing, and no one really talks about or is rewatching the older stuff. I'm just one of the weirdos that does revisit this stuff every so often,
It
multiple
just takes it's
times.
just even the
So
stuff you're getting a second season of, like Ahsoka. It's like, oh, it's taking so effing long. It feels like, but
and we got spoiled with Mando because season one dropped, and then a year later, season two dropped,
that's
and
how
then
TV shows are supposed to be.
that's how they're supposed to
That's not
be. And
spoiled. That's how it's supposed to
yeah,
be.
even between season two and three, we got the Book of Boba Fett, which continued Mando's story.
Uh huh.
Whether that was a good idea or not is up for debate.
Right.
But the point is, we got new Mando every year for about 4 years, and it wasn't until these last few years that suddenly these shows are taking forever. Now, part of it in the case of Andor is that they are massive productions, like on location with these sets and stuff.
Right.
I think Andor's budget is like fucking Death Star sized. You know, fucking Arcana 5 and them building the super laser. They're building the budget for the fucking show as slaves on Arcana 5 is what they're basically doing. So
That was the payroll they were stealing in
that
Andor
was
one.
yeah, exactly. We're gonna go AI. No, okay, we'll stick with slaves. But yeah, so I think Disney. I think all the companies are realizing, hey, this isn't sustainable, and we have too many options, and there's too much streaming, and they're just kind of everyone's running around and like turkeys with their heads cut off, and they have to get budgets down to something not I don't want to say manageable, but like something sane, like do more with less. You almost have to go back to being like an independent filmmaker to get these budgets down and stuff because it's just blown out of control and it's insane. So
yeah, and they need to write better, I would say.
yeah,
as well.
I think I think they're learning as they go on. I think there's been some hits and misses, and I think as long as we give the proper due to the good stuff and say, hey, we love this and this has viewers and keep doing this, I'm hoping they'll pay attention to that. But from what I heard of Andor, it didn't have the viewers that even like Ahsoka had. And Andor is like, to me, is like way better a series than Ahsoka or even Mando. But because it's Andor, I mean, I've been on the Star Wars book Reddit and I was just talking to a guy and he's like, I refuse to watch all this stuff. And I'm like, well, at least check out Andor, at least. And he's like, why do I want to see that? I don't like Cassian. I saw Rogue One. I didn't care for it. I don't like Cassian. Why would I see a whole series about him? And that just shows you how tone deaf some people are.
Fair enough if he doesn't like Cassian.
But the show's not just about Cassian. Obviously, it's called Andor, but you could watch it if you are into Mon Mothma or the Empire or the Rebellion or Saw Gerrera.
I am so into Mon Mothma.
I am.
No,
I really am. I think her story is actually. I'm so glad we're learning more about her. Anyway, that's the whole thing.
Right.
We'll get into that on the Andor
Let's
podcast.
just finish the predictions.
Well, we need to get into what people said about.
I know, but that's after the predictions.
The
Let me push this turd out. Torben didn't end up being the one mind controlled. It was Kelnaka. We thought that seemed pretty obvious, but obviously that was meant to be obvious. Was that it wasn't Torben that did whatever. It was Kelnaka.
He was definitely connected to it, but
that's a whole other thing too, because like they show, it's another thing that they touch on, and obviously maybe in further seasons or whatever. But the whole like quasi mind control thing that the witches do, and it turns your eyes turn black and stuff, and somehow Osha was doing that to Keemer when she had the sensory deprivation helmet on. There was something going on with her and affecting him and stuff, and I don't know if that's like something special with the witches or what. It's another thing.
Yeah,
that's like,
that was
we'll
interesting.
Never figure out.
That was very interesting. Also, I like how she put the helmet on. That episode ends, and then the next one was another flashback one. So it's almost like she put on the helmet. You could read it as her putting on the helmet and then seeing in the Force everything that happened.
Yeah.
I kind of like the way they did that.
And then I guess this goes well, this is my main complaint. It was all these mystery boxes. I talked about mystery boxes. It's all these mystery boxes that they don't get resolved. There was no payoff. Again,
well, not with one season.
Yeah. Something.
That's the problem.
They got to do something. All they did is resolve what happened that night on.
We've got 2 prequel books that are nearly out. Vernestra Rose, The Acolyte, the Wayseeker novel, which takes place, I think, 10 years before, is coming out, I believe, in just a week or two, very, very soon here. And then there's actually, believe it or not, Yord and Jecki have a prequel novel. The 2 characters everyone loved and then died.
Right. Good job.
Yeah, and like I said last time, I really like Yord. He is the almost like a young Mace Windu with what an asshole he is as far as following the rules.
Right.
But I really liked his character, and I can understand why certain fans reacted to him and Jecki. But
they're relatable.
Yeah, well, they're relatable, and they have a prequel novel coming out as well. But yeah, so it's almost a shame that these Acolyte tie-ins are coming out as late as they are. I feel like they could have
timed it better.
I don't know. Yeah, the timing.
At
least if they could put them out in the fall of last year. And I mean, it's weird too. There's a Bad Batch novel coming out this summer, and it's like, why? You could have put that out last year when the series was ending. Like, I don't know what they're doing, but
Who were the
anyway.
ad wizards that came up with this one?
Yeah.
The other thing I think I really wanted, this wasn't really a prediction, I don't think, but I really wanted them to mention midi-chlorians explicitly and like the witches.
M count.
Yeah, and they do, and that's fine. I like that, but then I don't know, they still got to pussyfoot around with M count.
I think.
But what I wanted them to
Phantom
do,
Menace fans got a good dose of Phantom Menace vibes
they did
with the Acolyte.
They did. What I wanted is them to talk about the mechanics of how Osha and May were created,
Yeah.
and then split apart presumably and all that stuff, and mention midichlorians and stuff, but they didn't do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. They didn't scan your brain and give you what you wanted.
exactly. What the hell?
How dare they?
But and then they don't even like, they don't lean into anything with it, which is fine, but like there's no, I don't know. Again, further seasons they might have mentioned like dyads and trying to make dyad, and that seems like they were, maybe that's where they were going, that they were trying to artificially, well, I don't know if the witches were trying to do it, but someone was maybe influencing them to try and create a dyad that way.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not even that hot on the whole dyad thing to begin with.
Yeah, it's an interesting plot point, but yeah, I'm definitely itching to learn more when or wherever I can.
Right. Anyway, whatever. So getting to the comments, because you kind of touched on it a little bit, the YouTube comments. It's interesting to me that, you know, obviously we don't have a lot of subscribers, and this is a hobby. I don't really care, but it's funny what will get picked up by the algorithm on YouTube and will garner more views than not. And a stupid video.
I threw rocks at the beehive.
Right, exactly.
What I did. I said the Acolyte is good in my thumbnail and in title. I knew what I was doing.
And it's funny that that's enough. Like the YouTube algorithm scans that and knows that this is going to be controversial and will get, you know, clicks and hate clicks and whatever just based on that.
Yes. All right, so let's read some of the comments that some lovely YouTubers have left us. There was good and bad comments, but sure enough, because like I said, threw rocks at a beehive, there was some people that didn't like the fact that I said the Acolyte is good. And I wasn't necessarily giving an overall impression. I'm just saying it's better than what the hate is that's being lumped upon it. That was, I think, in a lot of cases, a bit unfairly critical.
Even though I didn't like overall, I'd give it like a D or a C. It did get shit on more than I feel like
more than it deserved. I think it was just kind of.
I think it got shit on for the wrong reasons, actually, and which becomes more than it should have.
So, among the several dozen or so comments, here's one. Quote, "They have to be trolling. You cannot convince me that they're actually this stupid. Maybe you should have not come back after 6 months. Like, how can you think of anything that you're saying? Complete lack of critical thinking and ignoring the effect trash like the Acolyte has on Star Wars lore. Enjoy your dislikes, bud. No, it's an abomination. It's the worst Star Wars project of all time."
Oh, come on. The worst?
The worst.
It is not the worst.
It's above garbage, dude. Why is YouTube sending me all these phony shilling videos? This show is bad, and that was fine. But the endless fan baiting and media gaslighting is why I just canceled Disney Plus. These guys are clearly real fans of Star Wars and are quite knowledgeable of the fictional universe, which makes their take on the Acolyte all the more confounding. So yeah. What do you say to some of those?
Come on, the worst.
The worst.
The glove of Darth Vader. It's worse than the glove of Darth. It's worse.
I like how
than
the glove
Crystal
of Darth
Star.
Vader is wheeled out from 1992. Let's wheel it out in its wheelchair for yet another smack in the face. Yeah.
Yeah, come on, the Crystal Star, like, and that's
Oh,
just going back to the old you. And
and
listen,
it's not even that bad. But
no,
yeah, I know
that's
what
the
you're
thing.
saying.
That's
I
the
know what
thing.
you're. It's the punching bag though that we pull out. It's
It's
one of those.
it's it's not worse than the Last Jedi. Come on, like, and I mean, let's be real. I mean, in the Last Jedi is like technically well made and technically well written, but it's a shit Star Wars story and a shit Star Wars movie, and it's not that bad. It's the Acolyte is not right. Exactly. It's not that bad. Like, it's not. I don't even think it's as
It's
bad as
not as
Kenobi.
bad.
It's not as bad as Kenobi, and Kenobi has like
Kenobi
Obi-Wan and
is
Vader and
possibly the bottom of Star Wars for me, right? Like as far as TV streaming movies, it's probably the bottom
and
for me. But
if you
even
want to
Kenobi is not horrible. It's
right,
got parts I like.
and if you want to, broaden the umbrella and include all of Lucasfilm, it is not worse than Dial of Destiny, and it is certainly not worse than that fucking Willow uh, TV show.
This isn't a spy stream.
I wish that was a spy stream. That was so bad they took it off.
Willow.
They took it off of Disney Plus, so they
Yeah,
didn't have
that's
to
how
pay
bad.
anybody involved with it.
That's how bad that one was. I mean, I expected comments like that, and I just genuinely thought most of them were pretty funny.
Oh,
But then,
I get it, because I browse YouTube just the same as anybody else. I browse social media and forums and all that stuff. And there's people that I don't agree with their takes and stuff. And at this day and age, especially with Disney and how they operate, throwing the shill word around is it's not
it's so
uncalled for.
thrown around.
It
It's
is,
so
but it's
thrown
not
around.
uncalled for, because I do think that these media companies do pay for a lot of bots.
They
and
give look,
clicks and stuff.
It's not like I don't think they're necessarily paying people to say exactly, but you're going to influence people certainly by giving them previews and review copies and access
Right, yeah,
to interviews. You're
Yeah.
you're greasing the palms.
Yeah, and
basically.
I was going to make that point of, like, there are people
payola.
online. Yeah, exactly. There are people on YouTube. Don't need to name any names, but channels much bigger than us that do it for a living, and
Yeah.
so they have to, they have to tread a line of, like, well, it's not great, but I want to keep getting,
Yeah.
all the backdoor, review stuff, and
Right.
and I want to, keep my channel going and stuff. And, I don't care. This is a hobby. I don't give a shit. So, like, if I like something, great. If I don't like it,
Right.
whatever. Like,
All right, so let me get into a couple of the fair criticisms.
hey, you know what? If it means I get a paycheck, I love The Acolyte. I wish that there was 5 seasons of it.
I'll take a paycheck. All right, I'm gonna read a couple of the more positive or fair criticism comments. I'll say one is a little bit long, but I felt like the person really made a good point. But anyway, the shorter one from Rack Roll 445. He says, "I appreciate the POV you guys have, but this series is bad. Not just the changing of birth years." I guess he's talking about Kiadi.
Yeah.
But the base portrayal of how the Jedi are portrayed. Communist lesbian space witches who are obviously evil being treated like victims.
Were they
Again, though-
communists though? Like, I get the.
Wait, hold on. Let me finish what he says. Again, though, your point of view is appreciated, as any other opinions should be. Okay.
I think I was pretty ambivalent about the whole space witches and whatever they had going on that planet.
Yes.
It's not inherently bad if they're, lesbian or whatever. As long as it's who doesn't like lesbians, but it doesn't mean I don't know where he's getting communism from in that.
That's another word that's thrown around.
It's always a
little too
Nazi.
much.
Nazi and
You're a
communist.
fascist or you're a communist,
Yeah,
depending on
yeah,
which side of the
yeah.
aisle. It gets so old.
Yeah,
But
and that's-
yeah.
It's fine.
He was at least nice enough to say, I disagree with you guys, but again, blah, blah, blah. You're appreciated. And it depends on how people word these things. Obviously, there's the ones I mentioned before that were a little more vitriolic, let's say. But and then here's a longer comment from J.K. Crawl. He says, first off, kudos to you guys for not paying attention to social media. It's clogged with loudmouth dipshits, and you'll enjoy not just Star Wars, but other media a lot more. For a while, I was reading comments and arguing, and now I watch the show with too much conscious overthinking about what the criticism the haters are going to try and mine from it. It's weird because I don't know anybody in real life that hates the show as much as a lot of these guys do online. I have only one friend that doesn't like it that much, but he's much more reasonable and doesn't fall back on stupid nitpicks and the dated, smooth-brained, woke agenda argument. The most annoying thing about the haters is that they have to argue with people that like it. They are absolutely determined to prove people that the show they're watching, they're wrong for enjoying themselves. It's one thing to give a bad review. It's another to endlessly complain and drag others down. That said, it's honestly my favorite Star Wars since Revenge of the Sith so far. I haven't watched Andor or Ahsoka yet, so maybe those are good, but I was just burned out on Star Wars for a long time, and I know people are itching to call me a Disney shill, but I probably hated The Force Awakens more than the Disney haters did when it first came out. A lot of the criticisms are nitpicky at best. The one criticism I think is valid is some of the Jedi characters were kind of bland, but George Lucas set that precedent with the prequels. I like that it's following on the themes of Jedi being dogmatic from the prequels and exploring how other cultures may perceive the Force and the Jedi. I like that not everything is just dumped at once. There's always something to keep you watching. The acting is great. I really don't understand where the bad acting criticism comes from, except for the child twins in some parts. There's the criticism that some of the dialogue is cringe, but that's been a Star Wars thing since the very beginning. Star Wars has always been sci-fi fantasy schlock. Quote, the power of one, power of two, power of many line isn't any more cheesier than May the Force be with you, but we give the latter a pass because it's baked into our lexicon at this point. Don't get me wrong, this series could end up being horrible. I like the first two seasons of Mandalorian, but the last one was very lackluster. But right now, I'm enjoying the Acolyte, and it's keeping me on the edge of my seat. So, yeah, I agree with a good 80% of what he said.
Yeah, I think it's
a lot
very
of this
fair.
stuff, it's very fair.
As somebody that didn't really would grade the show below like at a C or a D, I think that that's very fair and level-headed. I think that's the biggest thing. Is like if you like it or hate something, as long as your discussions and criticisms of something are level-headed and in good faith, then it's fine. But like
exactly, just even if you really hate something, try and understand why you hate it. Don't automatically blame the product. Analyze it. Analyze the people that made it. Delve into. Was it them or you? Because what I noticed with a lot of people, and it's not just Star Wars, it's other art, it's music, whatever, a lot of times it's your own reaction to things that sometimes is the problem. Sometimes, not always.
Well, I think the best point that they make is avoiding like social media and stuff when something like this comes
herd
out.
mentality. It's herd mentality.
Every single time anything comes out, you go online and it's a bunch of people basically coming on and saying like, "Oh, I just saw this," without saying it, verbatim, but like, "I just saw this. What do I think about it?" That's kind of the mentality. Like, or just even going online, even if you're not posting or anything, just to consume what the zeitgeist is feeling about something.
And I think a lot of people that do, I mean, it's hard to say. I was going to say it's people under 35, but I'm like, well, everyone has a smartphone now. It's even the boomers that in some cases, not with Star Wars per se, but like as far as social media in general, having to give their hot take on every single aspect of life. And so you have people, especially with politics, where everything's very polarized because everyone has a goddamn smartphone with a fucking Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and everyone has to give their instant reaction to everything. and it's
Yeah.
so guided by algorithms and being nudged and pushed.
Well,
And
to go along with that, I think my biggest complaint and that comment sort of surfaced this in my head, and what you were just saying is the biggest problem I have with everything now, and especially with Star Wars, but this is the case with DC, the DCEU or whatever the hell it's called at this point, is these companies, Disney or Warner or whoever, when you do something, commit to it. Like one of the problems with Star Wars right now and with the sequels is they haven't seemed to commit to what they did, and so even now, 10 years later, or however long it's been since The Force Awakens came out and everything,
nearly 10.
They haven't fully committed to what they put up on the screen. Like, they've hinted at stuff in like Mandalorian and stuff, but you haven't pushed further out than what you put out to solidify it. And the same thing with like the whole, like, I'm glad I'm not a huge DC nerd, but like the whole Zack Snyder thing and the DCEU and rebooting that again. It's like, just you made a good movie, then you made a bad movie. And then,
it was seesawing.
And then you just jettisoned everything. And it's like, no, just push forward.
Just do it. Just do it, like Nike says. Because that's the thing. When TV series used to have more seasons, even just as recent as 10 years ago, that there was more of a chance for things to stay on streaming and have new viewers come in and binge series of shows across multiple seasons.
Right.
And that, in a lot of cases, is what gets people hooked.
And
just because the numbers are slightly down on season 1, that doesn't mean you should just eject it. Look at the Dark Crystal prequel that Netflix got rid of. That was an amazing season, and just because it was a little expensive to make, and Netflix is known for ejecting things for one season, but it's like, come on, guys, come on.
But I've been saying it this whole episode is, it's a lot of threads that were interesting that never got to or tied up, and it's just make it's okay. It's okay that it didn't like season 1 that much. It's okay I gave it a D. It doesn't mean I'm not going to watch season 2, season 3, season 4. Just commit to it.
Exactly.
Like, if you're going to make a show where you're setting up all these plot threads, commit to it. If you want to make a 1-off or a 2-off like Andor, that's fine. You committed to that. That's what you committed to before you made it. But Jesus Christ, just lean into it.
They've only committed to Mando, and just multiple Mando seasons, now a Mando movie. I feel like that's the only thing they have confidence in right now is Grogu and Mando, and I guess that's okay. There's just something, but like,
make more. Just make it fit into a budget that's palatable. Even I hate to say it, but even Willow, okay,
even if they did other seasons, just do it. It's fine.
Abomination. But now here's an interesting question, actually. If they did do a season 2 of Willow, okay, and I know you wouldn't watch it out the gate, but if they did, and then I came back and said, you know what, Willow season 2, it was really good, and it really fixed a lot of stuff.
I'd watch it.
Season 1. What? That's not what I'm asking.
Oh, okay.
That's not what I'm asking.
Oh, okay.
And it fixed season 1. Would you go back and finish watching season 1? That's the real question.
I would.
Oh, see, there you go.
I would.
See, you can retcon viewership that way.
You could. It's true. I mean, because also sometimes it takes a season 2 to make it look like season 1 was better than you thought.
Oh God, how many times have you, like, even Star Trek, right? Star Trek: The Next Generation, season 1, everybody hates it. Or they don't hate it. They don't hate it, but they recognize that
around
it's weak.
The edges.
It's weaker compared to other seasons when they got their feet under them. Same thing with Acolyte. It's like Acolyte season 2, it could have gotten to the real meat and potatoes that people were really jonesing for and really taken off, but we'll never know because they didn't want to commit to it.
I know. I just want the Stranger and Plagueis' story at least to continue, and I would love to learn the secret of Osha and May and how they're created. But give us that, even if it was a comic, even if it's just a comic, I don't care. Just don't let us hang like that. Don't edge us to near completion, and then
you got to finish us off.
You got to finish us off, please.
Hello there.
So yeah, that's all I got to say about that. Any last
Thanks,
thoughts on the
Forrest.
Acolyte?
Missed opportunities. It's not as good. Well, I don't think a lot of people are saying it's really good, except for that
No.
one commenter. Perhaps not as good as what they said, at least in my mind, but certainly not as bad as everybody said online. And
Yeah.
it's just missed opportunities and wasted potential, mostly based on the fact that they didn't commit to it. So it's a bummer.
My overall thought is that I have a real penchant for championing underdog things that are hated by the masses, especially within a fan base.
Oh yeah, me too. I'm very contrarian.
Whether it's music or whatever, whenever there's a band who has a hated album, I love it usually. And I think this is a case where I like the Acolyte. It might get an extra star from me just because of the extra hate it receives. I don't think it's awful at all. I think it's actually really good. Now, is it the best? No. It's just I think it's pretty darn good. Let's say that. Just like in the voice of Andy Griffith, it's pretty darn good. Yeah, that's it. I'd say people should check it out. Just do the work yourself.
Go look almost
at it.
A year
Go
later.
Watch it.
Yeah, you should check it out.
Check it. Well, how many people didn't check it out based on all the hate clickers? That's what I'm saying. Maybe we can turn one fan around, Jason. Just one person that's listening to this podcast, which probably is the entire fan base.
Algorithm willing. That's what I'll say.
But
algorithm willing. If
true.
The algorithm pushes this this video onto someone's feed that was on the fence about
that would be good. Anyway, on that note, I think we'll wrap things up here.
You know what? I'm sorry.
Yeah?
I'm sorry. There was one final thought, and I've mentioned this to you off of the podcast, and it's I think that going forward, Disney needs to make a point of just the show is the show. It doesn't matter who's making the show. Whoever's making the show shouldn't make bold comments about the show. They shouldn't talk up stuff. They shouldn't, whatever. Like, sometimes it works, like Tony Gilroy gets a lot of credit for, Rogue One, for his work on it and Andor and stuff. Whereas the Skeleton Crew, I still couldn't even tell you the name of the guys that made that. And that was a really good show. And it sort of stood on its own. And, Kenobi, they didn't really make a huge deal about the chick that
whatever her name was.
Whatever her name. Old what's her name?
What's her name?
Who made that? But then, I don't know. Like, Leslie Headland, I'm sure she's fine. But, like, she got way too far out ahead of the stuff. And it's like,
I think that's been a problem also with promoting things on social media, and they want to get certain fan bases jazzed, and then it ends up backfiring when you have.
Yeah, I mean, look at Dark Fate. Look
that.
at Terminator Dark Fate, right? The director of that pissed a lot of people off saying, I think it was the director, pissed a lot of people off saying like, oh, if you toxic male, you're going to hate this movie. And it's like, well, you've already planted in my head that I'm an asshole if I don't like the movie. So
you've already insulted your potential ticket buyer right there.
I'm not even saying that Leslie Headland did anything like that, but just my whole point is just release the show and let it speak for itself.
I would love to see a showrunner, or this goes for authors too. I'd like to not even know anything about them other than maybe their name,
right? And
then that's it. Imagine a universe with no social media,
because
when people would just put out the work and then quietly, that was it.
Right. Well, what Headland did, and I think it was to the show's detriment, in my mind at least, is she talked up about like being a big EU fan, old EU, and like having old EU stuff in the show, and that sort of, and obviously she did do that. There was old EU stuff in the show, and Plagueis is like a big insert and stuff. But just don't do that. Just release the show. Talk about it. Talk about it after.
Talk about it later.
Talk about it after the fact. Don't get me pumped up or pumped down or whatever. Just
that is what the roundtable discussions are for in the series that they need to bring back. You know, Disney Plus was putting those out. They had one for Book of Boba Fett and all of Mando and Obi-Wan. There hasn't been they haven't done one yet for Andor, but I assume they were waiting for season 2. But then Ahsoka needs one also. I just think they need more behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, do
But
that.
yeah, you're right. Do that afterwards, beforehand.
That
just
kind of goes
whatever.
along. That kind of goes along with the commenter's point about staying off social media.
Yep.
Just let the show go, experience the show, and then form your own opinion after the fact. That's
And
it.
I
Okay.
I remember
I'm
pointing
done.
out to you, I believe on the previous podcast, that I went very quietly into the Acolyte because I knew
Mhm.
I knew there was a hubbub, but I purposely stayed away from it, and I'm glad I did. And like I said, I judged it on its own merits, and I think more people should do
Yeah.
that. Just judge things
Right.
on their own merits. Let's all look into the behind the scenes stuff after, if we're interested. You don't even have to do that, only if you're interested. So, anyway,
Right.
all right. I think we've summed up everything. We will never need to talk about the Acolyte ever again. So, until
I
next
hate
time.
that sound.
Make sure you listen for when the next podcast is dropped, most likely months from now. Although I will say that I think we've been transitioning away from keeping up on every single. First, it was every single episode of every new show. Now it's like a whole show will pass like Skeleton Crew, and we give a thumbnail mention of it. I think we're going to focus more on Legends, classic retrospective stuff, and games from 80s, 90s, 2000s.
I think we're just
Old-
going to
old-
focus on whatever we feel like at the time.
Whatever we feel like. There will still be new Star Wars news and stuff we're going to mention. Obviously, when Andor comes out in just a month or two, we're going to get excited for that. But I'm looking forward to doing more bite-size things like old comics that we can do a quick read on, and then just kind of reflect on our old memories of when we read it back in the day. That's
Yeah.
always good, fun stuff. So, anyway, look for us on Instagram, Star Wars Unfiltered, as well as the YouTube channel here, where you're likely hearing this. Whatever day we get our podcast up on a real podcast service, I'll be able to promote that. But until then, may the Force be with you.
Good night.